Excuse me, I think the word you're searching for is...
Open your mind.
Yeah. What up, everybody? Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
It's time for that Open Your Mind podcast. I am DJ Lou with Mike.
What's up, everybody?
And Eddie.
How's it going, guys?
So, man, the crowd loves you, bro.
Oh man, they're going wild. They're excited for Evolution.
Please, please, we have a lot to cover. Keep your applause till the end.
We got a lot to cover. Evolution. All right, man. So let's get right into it. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Welcome to our universe. And I know you're jelly of that background right there, dudes. I know you are.
Background.
I know you are. So, Eddie, how are you, man? How's life?
I'm feeling wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Hey, what got you into atheism, man? Because we're talking evolution. I want to know your upbringings, like as a kid. What got you into evolution?
Honestly, like, as far as what made me an atheist, or what got me into evolution? Because what got me into evolution was just, curiosity of nature and science. And,
were you born like that, or
passion?
Were you born into a religion?
I was
or forced into, or something like that?
I grew up Muslim. My whole family's Islamic, and I spent a good portion of my youth at a private Muslim school in Orange County.
How was that?
Very stifling. Well, it wasn't very enjoyable for me anyway. I had a lot of questions growing up as a kid.
So you'd always battle your teacher or something?
I was questioning all the time, and that would get on.
Did they always have an answer, like from the Quran or something?
Where did you get that kind of nerve? Because I know as a kid, for me, I was just into sticking my gum on the bottom of a desk, playing with my little G.I. Joes.
That's it's interesting you phrase it like that, that I had the nerve. I didn't look at it like I was rebelling or dissenting at all. I just had questions. I was curious.
Somebody implemented that, though. You don't just get this type of idea in your head unless your parents are like, yo, question everything or stand up for yourself. And I get a lot of that from the Muslim people, is that they don't really take no for an answer. They're like, they if they have a problem, they're gonna let you know. And
I don't know, bro, because sometimes when you're young too, like Hispanic, who they'll be asking, like, who's God, who's Dios? Oh, he's in the sky, and then so you're like, okay, what? And that's what you tell your children, because they do have questions.
But they accept it.
Well, my parents are definitely very strong-minded people. Obviously my mother's very opinionated. So is my father. And
aren't all women?
And I, if anything, that probably instilled it in me to question, but it kind of worked against their favor because they're still very, very Muslim, and that's an issue that I battle with them a lot. But as far as back to my schooling and everything, it was just a situation where I would ask simple questions, and the answer was always, oh, don't ask that, or there was no answer.
Don't ask that. I mean, how bad was the question? I mean, what types of questions were you asking, if you don't mind me asking you?
Well, okay, so what got me because I'm pretty sure I became an atheist probably in the fourth grade. I didn't call, obviously I didn't know what to call it. That's probably when I was really first starting to question it, and it wasn't we at the school we would have our we had a period of study that was just Quran, us reading and reciting and memorizing the Quran, and then we also have another period where it was just learning about Islam, and then also Arabic. And then obviously math and science and all the other stuff you would learn at school. But we spent a good portion learning about the prophets and everything, and learning about all the different stories out of the Quran. And it was never any of the big, crazy religious kind of stories.
And just to make it clear, you guys learned about Jesus as well?
Yeah, well, Jesus is a prophet in Islam as well.
Okay.
Isn't he the most quoted man in the Quran?
Most quoted? I don't know about that.
To Google.
To Google we go. No.
Good question.
But what is atheism to you?
Atheism to me is not a religion, is not faith-based. Again, it's no one ever chooses to be an atheist. You don't ever look at a list of things you could be ideologically wise or whatever and choose atheist. You just become one just through questioning, through lack of evidence, through seeing that there's better answers elsewhere, that the actual answers are elsewhere.
When you say actual, you mean...
Well, and what got me questioning it was when we were being told stories growing up about the prophets and everything. And I was a kid, so a lot of the really fanciful, kind of crazy stuff I ate up. I love that stuff, like Muhammad ascending to heaven on a winged horse, and you know, all time on earth freezing while he was up there and coming back down.
I know nothing of that, and hearing that from you is so like it's such a mind opener, because I hear one side of a story my whole life: Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ. I never hear about Buddha, never hear about Allah. Hearing about what you just said, it's like, what? I didn't know that.
So the story is, there's little details in the story that got me questioning as a kid. It was never the big fanciful stuff, like him ascending to heaven on a winged horse. Basically, what happened was the angel Gabriel comes down to Muhammad one night and tells him, we're going to go up to heaven, you're going to meet God. And there's in Islam there's 7 levels to heaven, and
Gabriel also appears in the Bible.
Yep.
Yeah. 7 levels to heaven.
Angel Gabriel is the one that presented Muhammad with the Quran. Basically, he's the one that brought the revelation to Muhammad in a cave in the middle of the desert when he was by himself, which is usually how those revelations happen. But when I was a kid, again, I ate all that stuff up. I loved hearing it. I loved listening to it. But there's always little details that were weird for me. For example, in that story, Muhammad goes up to heaven with Gabriel, and he goes through all the different levels of heaven, and he meets all the other prophets and everything that came before him. And eventually, of course, you know, he goes and meets God. And God tells Muhammad to...
Isn't it Allah?
Allah.
I know more than you. Just go ahead. I'm skating, man. Go ahead.
The big man in the sky.
Yeah.
Whatever your name is for him. And he tells Muhammad, okay, you need to, I forget the exact number, but it's a ridiculously large number in the thousands. He tells Muhammad, you need to tell the people on earth they need to pray to me this many thousand times a day. And he goes back to Gabriel, and Gabriel's like, no, humans are never going to do that. Go back and tell him it needs to be a lower number. And that's the part where they lost me as a kid. I mean, as a kid, you know, I'm like, really? Like, you're gonna go barter with God? Like, if you're in God's presence and He tells you to pray 30,000 whatever times a day, like, your answer should be, I'm on it. Like, you're standing in the room with God. Like, where do you feel you have the ability to? I don't know. That's gonna be a little much, God. Can we bring it back down? Can we ring it in a little bit?
So as far as
little things like that, I would question, and
who would you question? Would you question not only your teachers but your family, like your parents, your uncles, and what would they say? Would they get upset with you, or were they kind of like?
Eventually, my dad would just give me the answer that, you know, look, you don't need to take everything in the Quran. This was honestly, it's weird. It's the most almost agnostic answer my dad has ever given me. But he's like, you don't need to take everything in the Quran literally. Just, you know, you need to take it for its good, its family values, its morals, and blah blah blah.
And I could agree with that. You know, that's kind of how I reference to the Bible.
That was a good enough answer for me as a kid. And then you become an adult, and then you kind of start learning more about ethics and morals. And
how was it in high school?
In high school, honestly, it's only recently that I'm getting to quote unquote be myself, because I always felt like I was living 2 separate lives. There was the life I lived at home with my parents, which was very Arabic and Muslim, and then once I left the door,
you were Americanized.
Exactly.
You were assimilated.
And I think it partly has to do with the fact that, you know, for the most part, I think this is the way with most Arabs, and I know it's the way with a lot of like Hispanic families as well. Like, when you grow up, your friends are your cousins, your brothers and sisters. Like, that's your group. That's the people you hung out with. Those are the people that you did stuff with socially, and you met people through them. And in my family, I was always the oldest, so I didn't really have that. So I had to go out of my own culture to find friends and stuff. And I Americanized myself, I guess, if you want to use that.
Very cool. Very cool
phrase. But
it must have been tough on you just being a kid, understanding that you didn't want to go this route because you had more questions, and it stopped you at that point and saying you can't.
It made me like really question myself. That was the beginning of me questioning myself, because at first I was like, what's wrong with me? Everyone else I know, everyone else I love is digging this, is like eating this up. Like, they're all about this, and what's wrong with me? Like,
let me ask you a question. In regards to all those people, do you feel like some of them might be hypocrites? One thing that I understand from the Quran and Muslim values is that there's no gambling or drinking. Yet I grew up with a lot of Muslims, and I would see them do it all time, or smoke weed or whatever it is. And I know every religion has this.
Yeah, it's not a Muslim thing.
But like, can you be a practicing Muslim in America? Because I've heard people argue to say that you cannot be a Muslim in America just because of everything you're exposed to out here. Like, it's just so different.
It's difficult. It puts you in it makes you make difficult decisions.
Like,
you probably you limit yourself a lot socially. Like you can't. Obviously we can't. I say we. I'm so used to. Muslims can't drink alcohol, or can they run a business that serves alcohol? They can't serve alcohol. So I mean, there's a lot to it like that.
It's like survival in a way, because that's your means of income. I mean, what do you do?
I know lots of Muslims that drink regularly and celebrate Christmas.
Why is it that they do not drink and gamble? Do you know why? Did you ever ask that? It's brought forth as an ethical issue. Okay.
Drinking leads to making poor decisions. Gambling, you can lose your house, all your money.
See, there's similar things in the Bible. I mean, when I grew up,
similar people in the Bible.
The exact same names and everything.
I'm talking about alcohol and
everything.
And, doing all that silliness, and we'll get into the guidelines of that.
That's one thing that I think angered a lot of people back when Muhammad was trying to spread Islam, was because he basically brought it forth as like, no, this is the same religion Abraham was preaching and Jesus and everyone before me. I'm reminding you guys. And if you research the prophets, it's kind of funny because they all essentially, other than the ones that are also mentioned in the Bible, like the big ones like Noah and Jesus and all them, they had their own specific stories. But a lot of the prophets essentially have the same story. It's the big. There's one village or town or group of people that are doing something bad.
Yeah.
And then God finds the most honest, most loved person around, and then he tells them to go, stop worshiping idols or whatever. And they always disagree and kick him out, or they don't agree to right away. And so God destroys the village. That's basically the story for every. And
then one thing in religion that I've noticed is like there's always this fear of a devil, or even fear of your own God. Sometimes it seems like
Do you believe in hell?
The Quran goes back and forth between when you're reading the Quran or like a translation of it, because you need to learn Arabic to read it. But that's one of the things that I always confused me as a kid, is because God is all knowing and all powerful, but he only speaks Arabic. He can only write in Arabic. Like, why wouldn't you write a book that everyone can understand? Like, why are you making Filipinos learn Arabic when you can just? It's supposed to be a perfect book. Anyway,
good question. Very good. More questions. I want to know, what are you thinking about? Because when so you said you started to believe in around 4th grade. You started to have your own thoughts and your own atheist.
That's when I started really questioning it. I probably didn't know what it was, or didn't term it as atheism until high school.
And when people hear atheism, like, I think automatically they think like you worship the devil, since you don't worship God.
There's a lot of negative. There's a lot of
misconception of what it actually is. Right?
I like the hellfire background you have going on right now. I'm taking us all down, guys.
It is called evolution. Evolution.
Well, here's the thing. Atheism has a lot of negative stereotypes. For example, people think we eat babies.
You guys drink blood?
People think we worship the devil, which is stupid because we don't believe in the devil. If you don't believe in God, you don't believe in the devil. So why would we worship something that doesn't exist?
So what do you worship? Science?
I worship music.
Nice.
Honestly, if I had to choose something that I quote unquote worshipped or spend my time praising and enjoying, or something that I pull, a lot of my own either not personality traits, but something that affects
creativity,
something
imagination
that affects me the most is definitely music. But
isn't saying I don't believe in like hell, so therefore I won't go, is like dismissive, like saying I don't believe in the law, even though you break it, there's consequences to it.
Well, the answer to that question is where you get your morals from. And if you get your morals from a religious source, then of course you're going to believe in a hell and a heaven.
Who created religion?
Man.
Okay, so my question is,
religion is really just man's first attempt at trying to figure out
mind control,
the universe. When ancient man would look up and see the sun, the sun brought them life. It made the plants grow. Kept them warm in the day. Of course they would worship the sun and the moon at night.
Yeah,
stuff like that would come arise, and then the stories would happen. And they don't have explanations for stuff that happens every day.
But religion is very violent. If you look at the history of it, when you had the conquistadores come to the Americas, specifically...
What is that?
The conquistadores?
Yeah.
Those are the people that came from Europe.
Those are the very nice people that
Spaniards?
spread the word of Jesus.
The Europeans, the Spaniards that came to Mexico, and they pretty much forced it upon them, like they said, no, you cannot sacrifice humans.
Chris Rock, actually, who hasn't ever come out as an atheist, but and doesn't really talk about religion in his stand-up at all. But there's a clip of him on YouTube from like the 80s, I think, when he was really young, and he's talking about religion. And he's like, I haven't really found one for me. He's like, it's not Jesus. I mean, Jesus was forced on black people by white people. So, and so I know that's not for me.
And that was what, during slavery, when they were free? I'd like to think that, like, it seems like a lot of minorities are a lot more religious compared to other people. I feel like, I don't know if it's, like, for instance, in Mexico, I believe 90% are, like, Roman Catholic, you know? So, you know, it's kind of this...
But they're Roman Catholic because
that's what I'm trying to say, because of the invasion that came through.
If the Spaniards never showed up and brought the Bible with them.
Yeah.
But
doesn't that go back to saying God telling the prophet to say, hey, you need to spread my word. You need to go to the whole planet, and you need to spread the word, because from my understanding is that once everybody hears the name of Jesus, like, that's when everything's supposed to be kosher and legit. But until then, there will be wars, endless wars, and
right. And that's why I believe what the shirt says right here, in good we trust, because we have to know the differentiations of what is good and what is wrong.
But here's my
it says, in God we trust on money. What do you think of
my
that?
opposition to that, to God sending the prophets to spread. That's a very inefficient way for an all-powerful being to spread his word. We're talking about the creator of all life and matter in the universe, and like, he's relying on the work of one man to spread his word to the entire world.
On a little rock that spins around the sun.
And like, then he'll find some lonely guy wandering the desert by himself, an outcast from the society, like in a cave, probably dehydrated, probably syphilitic, probably delusional, in a cave by himself. He'll find that man and he'll be like, look, here's my revelation, go spread it to the people.
So it's not like they just ate some peyote or something.
It's a very inefficient way for an all-powerful being to work. It seems like he would have a better... it seems like all he would need to do is snap or think, or not even that.
Okay, well, who profits from religion?
We all do.
Yeah, who profits from it the most on this planet? Like, who's
the
going
Catholic Church, politicians?
Because they're nonprofit organizations. They get free money. I mean, we always constantly hear of scandals of pedophiles. If you're a priest in our religion, well, I say my religion, Catholics, Catholicism, a priest cannot be married. And I don't understand that. I never understood that. And when I was little, I used to ask, I'd be like, well, why can't they be married? It's like, well, technically it's like he's married to God or something in that essence, metaphorically speaking. And I was just like, whoa, that's kind of weird, And then you hear about all these, kids getting molested. And, it happens it's a problem. It's a problem to where there's bishops and people covering this things up.
Yeah.
It was just until recently that the Vatican acknowledged anything of this, because they've always been kind of hush-hush about it. But yeah, it's horrible,
Still very. A lot of these priests haven't been prosecuted yet.
Exactly.
None of them serve jail time. They pretty much just get moved to a different
and
part
that's
of the
wrong.
country.
That's definitely wrong.
But honestly, you see that in schools too. Like,
correct. Yeah, with the teachers, with the staff.
I have a friend on Facebook that would get mad at me if I didn't mention that, because that was an argument we had.
What was it? Go into it.
Well, no, it was. I have a kind of a vulgar sense of humor. If anyone that knows me, I'm very dark, and in my life, nothing is above criticism or humor. Everything is okay to be made fun of. There isn't one thing that's sacred that isn't okay. But
they'll put a hit on you if you make fun of Muhammad or draw a cartoon like that guy from the newspaper, right?
Absolutely.
There's a specific term. What's it called? Fatwa or fatwa or something like that. Yeah.
You're not allowed to draw them. You can't have any sort of representation of the Prophet Muhammad. He's described through people that knew him, I guess, in writings and stuff like that, what he looked like. But you can't ever have just because it's they don't want anyone to worship that representation of the prophet. They want the prophet to be remembered. But at the same time, it's stupid. You can't have like some, I think it was Swedish or from Norway, but some political cartoonist draws Muhammad, and then his car he gets killed in a car bombing. But
damn, that's crazy.
And if you notice, like, a lot of comics that are normally stand-up comics that are normally very vulgar and very
God is always featured on Family Guy.
Jesus is in every
In
episode
South Park,
almost. No.
South Park.
What's
you know?
funny? What's
Yeah.
funny about that South Park episode is Muhammad was in their opening credits for like 2 seasons, and no one ever mentioned it.
Wow.
Because they had a Jesus and Friends episode where Muhammad was one of there, and they showed him in the credits every day. But then they do that one episode, and everyone kind of blew up about that.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy how social media just really, I know people that they will battle you to the death over religion, like, from their posts on a daily basis, whatever. Like, to me, it's like this.
Man,
Look,
the arguments I've had with my family. If my family could put a hit out on me. No, I'm joking.
Man. I'm joking.
But in all seriousness, though, I mean, it is again something that I've struggled with my whole life, because these are arguments I've had with my family. I mean, it brings my mom to tears every time.
I'm sure it deteriorates a relationship. That's why they say.
For example of, and plus I'm kind of someone that doesn't know how to keep my mouth shut. So I've gotten better.
Keep going.
I've gotten better at it. Like, there's a time and a place for everything. Like,
exactly.
For example, very recently. So there's these things that you can give to people that they wear around their neck or keep in their wallet, but anyway, but they shouldn't keep it in their wallet because it has passages from the Quran on it. That's a rule. I'm not making that up. Because then you'd sit on it, and you're allowed to sit on the Quran.
Yeah, I heard you're not supposed to wear like any like religious jewelry into a bathroom or gold or something like that. Is that right? Or something like that. I don't know. Along those lines.
It's not to that extreme. It's more of just like showing respect to the written word.
Oh, I mean, if it was like a medallion of the emblem.
Like you can wear that, and there's people have Allah necklaces.
Okay, I hear different things from people.
So my mom, very sweet of her, made these 2 little like prayer things for my brother and I, and one was specifically for me, and one was specifically for Mo. Muhammad's my little brother. Just to give you
the prophet
a little background. Surprisingly enough, well, his name is Muhammad, and my name is Ahmed. My real name is Ahmed, which is a derivative of the name Muhammad.
Isn't that the number 1 name in the world?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
It's not. They weren't being very creative when they named us. But so she made these 2 like little things for us to wear. One was specifically for me. One was specifically for Mo. And she's like, now give Ahmed this one, and you take this one. Like, don't get them mixed up. And I'm sitting there going like God won't know the difference. Are you saying like, oh no, that was meant for and that's kind of started a whole, little stuff
but
like that.
But you're just being like comedic towards it.
Where I should have just been like, thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Instead I bring it in, but it's definitely caused.
Anytime you can get a little jab, you're throwing it in there.
Yeah, anytime. They know I'm the dissenter. I'm the black sheep.
I got some questions for you, and I hope you could answer them.
Sure.
Ooh. No, we're not doing the game show. I'm just kidding. But so you're a believer in evolution, right?
That's a wrong way to phrase that question.
Did you major in biology?
I did not. I'm not a scientist or a doctor or evolutionary biologist. I'm a regular guy who's passionate about knowledge.
Well, you broke down a bunch of stuff on Facebook when I posted this video that I enjoyed called Evolution versus God. And I just, how would you like for the question to be then? If you don't believe in evolution, how or?
I forget who first phrased it this way, but the correct way to ask that question is, how much do you know about evolution?
Nice. How much do you know about evolution?
As much as I possibly can.
Come on, man.
Because here's the thing. With evolution, there is no debate going on about evolution. That's something they've
There's
created.
no truth, right? It's just data from previous...
This is data we've been collecting for over a century. I say we, I mean like the
scientific community
people scientific community. Like recently there was that Ken Ham Bill Nye debate. Bill Nye wasn't up there defending his...
Bill Nye is awesome, by the way.
Bill Nye's amazing.
I used to love his show.
Bill Nye wasn't up there defending his theory of evolution. He was defending the theory of evolution. This is something we've been studying and collecting data on and observing on a daily basis for over a century. There is no debate on evolution.
Well, we can talk about and discuss different views of it, right? I mean, we all have a perspective, don't we? I mean,
but honestly, and we can, but opinions on fact don't matter. They're the facts.
This is America, though. We make opinions facts. Just look at our media.
Evolution can definitely be presented much better to the public because it's usually, a lot of the people that are so against it don't understand how science works, don't understand how we know what we know in science, or why we know what we know in science, and it's instantly and plus with their upbringing, the people that they trust, like it's usually church leaders, their parents, they were always brought up a certain way. Like if you grew up with religion your whole life, that's something that's always been a huge part of your life, and you were never. I don't know about exposed isn't the right word because obviously you're going to get exposed to some form of atheism somewhere. But when it's that deep embedded in you, it's very easy because no one wants to be told something they dedicated their life to is a lie,
Right.
or doesn't exist, or is being used to control them. And
Santa Claus isn't real.
And you always see the first thing that kind of stopped me out in the video that you brought up is because even the title, it's like evolution versus God. Like, evolution has nothing to do with God. All evolution does not disprove the existence of God. Evolution is just the best explanation we have for how life as we know it.
Right. And they say
Earth.
because you think you're an atheist that you have to prove that God doesn't exist, but it's just your view of...
It's not on the atheist to prove that God doesn't exist. It's on the people claiming that he does exist.
That's what I mean. You don't have to prove anything. But let me show you this picture real quick and get your view on it. It's as simple as this. There are millions of these little monkey dudes and millions of these humans. So where are the millions of these in between?
Really?
Yeah. Break it down.
It's Bigfoot.
If we evolved into this human right here, and I mean
the millions of those in the middle.
Break it down in layman's terms, because we're talking to everyone out there. You're not just talking to me. You're talking to other people online. I mean, if you say really, are you indicating that I'm stupid, or are you indicating that people out there are stupid?
Because the millions of those, that middle category right there. The reason I say really is because go to any natural history museum. Go to.
I've never been to a natural
university.
So you can teach me something right now.
We've been collecting fossils on that middle group for decades. We find them all over the world. It wasn't just the four people or four creatures you see in the middle. We're finding more and more branches to that. We're finding more connections on that evolutionary tree. We've already found millions of those missing links.
And how can you determine how old a fossil is? Like, how do you know how old a bone is? I mean, couldn't they be
through carbon dating, through work in a lab? And those are techniques that have been developed and tested and retested. So it's not something they question anymore because of how.
But I question everything.
The standard.
Mm-hmm.
I question everything because I've been lied to my whole life, and I'm not trying to disprove you. What I'm trying to ask you is,
one of my favorite parts of the poster to this show is right next to Mike's face. Is I never stop questioning.
Yeah,
from Albert Einstein.
Right, and I'll continue to do that even when someone like yourself says, "Really," I didn't know how to interpret that because it can be like, "Really, Lou, you don't know this," or "Really, the people out there don't know this," or "Really, what are you asking me?"
I say that, and I don't mean to be disrespectful. It really is just a shock to me. That how because it seems like that information was so readily available to me.
Yeah, and it wasn't to many of us who don't know what you're thinking or what you've learned and experienced, so you can break it down to people. That's why it's called Open Your Mind, so you can talk to people out there and say, look, there's other ways of learning shit. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But we all came from Adam and Eve, don't you know?
Yeah, all evolution disproves is the thousands of years of literally biblical incest it would take for a man, a woman, and their two sons to populate the earth, not just where they landed, but all the other parts of the earth that aren't mentioned in the Bible.
As far as I see it, as far as the Bible goes or certain books, I think it just needs to be taken a little bit more poetically, metaphorically. Like there's certain things where it's like you were saying earlier, you're referencing that I believe Muhammad, was on an angel or left the earth. One thing I wanted to get to though before you jump in is there's this show called Ancient Aliens. I don't know if you're aware of it. And on this one, they do go back into religion and certain things, and it's just it's kind of amazing. Because
why is that funny, Eddie?
When I think of Ancient Aliens, I think of that dude with the crazy hair, and he's always like aliens. He's on every meme out there right now.
Yeah, but alien just means not from this earth, correct? It doesn't have to be the Hollywood description of it. So God would be an alien to this planet. It's not like he was created on here, correct?
There's some legitimate scientific evidence that shows that life on this earth could have been seeded by a meteor or a piece of rock from another planet.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
And Neil deGrasse Tyson is someone you hear a lot of on TV and stuff, but he's made a lot of good points as far as there's bacteria, there's life forms on Earth that are designed to survive. They're not designed specifically for space, but they can survive interstellar travel. Humans are not meant for space. We do not do well in space. We are very weak and vulnerable. But
we have that International Space Station.
We have that, but that's floating very close to Earth. And we're not meant to travel the interstellar distances.
Did we go to the moon?
Universe is so big. Of course we went to the moon. The universe is so big.
I don't think so.
There's no way a human in this lifetime can travel to a lot of the places in the universe. But there's these bacteria, there's life forms on Earth that they can survive that. They can survive conditions that we would be destroyed in seconds.
I wanted to bring up an article that I came across. Stephen Hawking. I mean, I every time I hear his name, I just think of like, oh, this guy's like an Einstein type thing. You know, like they praise him like he's pretty smart,
he's
right?
revolutionized physics for the last 50
yeah, and this
years.
guy is pretty much in his chair and he speaks through like a computer that's attached to him. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, so I was reading about this, and this is just Stephen Hawking's point of view. Nothing to do, you know. I'm just reading the article. It says Stephen Hawking says science can prove God does not exist, and this was a recent article. This was September 28, 2014. And you know, this guy has actually gone. I think it's Virgin that sends you to like the orbit.
Virgin Galactic.
Oh, Virgin Galactic. And
Virgin Galactic is why can't I remember the head guy of Virgin right now?
Sir Richard Branson.
Richard Branson, that's right. So Richard Branson and Elon Musk are kind of like the two big names when it comes to private space ventures. Anyway, because Musk has SpaceX, and they want to take us to Mars.
And SpaceX is taking goods to the International Space Station. They just
currently
signed
their Falcon 9 rocket, their Grasshopper rocket, which is amazing. And what Virgin Galactic is trying to do is they're trying to make space travel accessible to everyone.
And Richard Branson smokes weed. He does. He's an advocate of it. You know, like that's what's kind of cool. You know, like I feel like there's certain drugs out there that stupefy you, and there's certain plants that you can smoke they elevate your mind.
I think they destroy you, bro. They destroy the brain because they're just so powerful. They just fry you like acid and shit. Here's a photo I think is pretty interesting.
But the reason I want to bring up Stephen Hawking is because when he did go with Virgin Galactic to the orbit, he could actually move.
In zero gravity.
In zero gravity, yeah, which is pretty cool because he hasn't moved in like forever, and then he goes out there.
Damn, is his body that weak or what's the deal?
No,
well, muscles
paralyzed.
If you're in a hospital bed, if you're in a wheelchair, like muscles depreciate if they're not being used. They eventually just wear away. So if you've been in a wheelchair for several decades, your legs aren't going to be able to function under normal gravitational.
Yeah, but they have machines that can assist you and exercise and stuff, right? And help people that can help you and carry you and walk with you.
Well, that's something they're working with, and there's actually one. There's an astronaut right now on the International Space Station that's going to be up there for much longer than anybody else has. And they're obviously testing effects on space travel long term, because I mean it takes 6 months to get to Mars. So think about it. You need to be able to live in a room about this size with 4 other people for 6 months, you know, and not have any problems arise.
That must suck ass.
And they've tested it too. They've actually had people locked in a room this size for 6 months, and you know, gave them. Obviously, there's no natural light. Everything is going to be dictated by a timer. And they were each given tasks to do, and they were judged on how well they were able to do those tasks throughout the experiment.
That's pretty
just to
crazy.
see that there's a lot we're still learning about space, how we act. And even then, even when you look past just the time it takes to get places, you're still being bombarded by radiation constantly.
Could you imagine? Look at the screen right here, just being out here in the middle of nowhere,
You
dude.
would die.
I'd be scared as shit to be out here. Call me a pansy or wuss, whatever you want to call me. This shit is scary. Then you got to come back and then walk all over again and shit like that.
They have obviously machines and techniques on the shuttle and on the International Space Station where they exercise regularly to keep their obviously to keep their muscles working. And once they come back, you see them. A lot of them need help out of the capsule. They need help out of the. I mean, it's especially depending on how long they've been up there.
Something cool I just read too is on the goods that they're sending to them. They're sending a 3D printer, which 3D printing technology is awesome. You know, I mean that's going to be like the next economic boost. I feel like everybody's going to have a 3D printer. What do you think about those?
The 3D printer. Is my mic kind of?
Yeah, I don't know. Are the mics on?
Can you hear me all right?
No, I'm trying to adjust it, but it's giving me some shit.
Yeah.
I've already offended somebody. My mic's turned off. There we go.
There we go. We're back on. Okay.
The 3D printer is going to be amazing once they put a 3D printer. Once they advance that technology enough, because there are tons. First of all,
they're already making full cars that work out of 3D printing.
Well, okay, because on the International Space Station specifically, there are a lot of the space is taken up by spare parts, like
in
tools,
case something happens,
in case something breaks. So all that space is being taken up by parts that probably are never going to be used.
Yeah.
And
but it's a precaution.
Getting those parts up into space is ridiculously different. Every pound of
expensive
stuff
as
you
well
put
too
on the shuttle, it adds way more. Like you need that much more fuel, to take it out. And a lot of the effort is just getting that shuttle out of our atmosphere.
Yeah, I was reading before, we were depending on Russia to send out our astronauts. It was costing, I think, like $70 million each time they would send somebody else. That's kind of crazy.
SpaceX, actually, Elon Musk just took.
Yeah, they just took the
them
contract.
to the Supreme Court. Really?
Well,
they took them to the Supreme Court because Lockheed Martin wanted us to purchase rockets from the Russians, and SpaceX was like, "What?
That makes
we just built this amazing rocket. Are you kidding me?" So SpaceX won the contract for the rocket for their Falcon 9, and Boeing actually won the contract for the capsule, the shuttle.
So, how do you feel about Scientology?
Scientology
as a religion is that labeled a religion?
Is completely false.
Why so?
In the same sense as like the Mormon religion is. I mean, these are faiths that were created in the 19th century, and the head guys of these two religions are convicted con artists.
Convicted con artists.
Artists, yeah, like the guy who started Mormonism.
So they're acting like somebody that they're not.
He was committing fraud in another state. Before he moved to wherever and started and found the tablets in the middle of a forest that only he can read through wearing special glasses when you have to put something over your head. It sounds like
for real?
I'm being serious.
Wow.
I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but I mean, look up the origins of the Mormon religion, and you'll see that. Like Scientology, and there's a lot of different theories as to why Scientology exists. There's even some more radical ones that are borderline, almost like anti-Semitic too, because there are some people that also think, Scientology was just created to combat a Jewish takeover of entertainment in Los Angeles. And
there's always an agenda.
What's funny is though you get theories like crazy theories like that from the most unexpected sources. Like you know who told me that theory?
Who?
My dentist.
Really?
He's like in my mouth working, and he's like, Scientology was created to combat the Jewish takeover of Hollywood.
Propaganda.
I'm like,
perfect time.
I'm sitting there with sharp things in my mouth. I'm like, oh my god, this guy's working on my teeth, and he's anti-Semitic.
Richard Dawkins makes the argument that we are condemned to live only for a few decades, and that's too small of a time scale to see evolution going on.
Evolution is something that happens very slowly through very small genetic mutations over a long period of time, and it doesn't always work out positively. Evolution doesn't always create survivors, or evolution doesn't always create things that work. Like there's birds out there with wings that don't fly. There's fish at the bottom of the ocean where there's no light and they have eyes that do nothing.
Right.
The evolution is just very small, very, very small genetic changes and mutations that happen. And then if it works out positively for that specific species, then it's going to work out great. Finches, which is a bird, they're used a lot as an example. Even though they live on the same island, finches on this side of the island grew longer beaks. They're able to dig into wood and find whatever food they need to. While the finches on this side of the island have smaller beaks, and that's obviously that's not something you can observe in your lifetime, because we only live maybe 100 years. And
if you're lucky, yeah.
If you're lucky,
yeah.
But
how will we go about proving it? If you're talking about bones, is that what we look at in order to see the evolution of time?
Through testing and experimentation, and through observation of other species.
But we don't ever see any kinds of species.
And plus, corn, bananas, apples, like the fruit, like.
It's all modified.
Isn't it modified though? Isn't that why it's bigger now and stuff like that?
It's we're thinking of there's evolution through natural selection, which is Charles Darwin's theory that came out in 1859, and then there's also evolution through artificial selection, which is how dogs came to exist. Your pet dog, which is how corn is in the way it is now. It's us choosing attributes that a living thing can have, and then breeding specifically those attributes into future generations, and then slowly dogs become more docile and more trainable and more man's best friend and not wolf, and slowly corn is more productive. The heads of corn are larger. They're producing more corn on the edible corn anyway. Bananas are large. Like, we're able to do it artificially. But you can't. It's not something that you're able to observe, obviously, over millions of years. But we also have the fossil record. We also have all the different fossils we're finding of that middle group that you showed on that picture not too long ago. And we can sit there and put those fossils side by side and watch these creatures come in and out of existence. Like we can watch these creatures, through obviously, through record, basically. Mm-hmm. The way scientists observe things is very different. They're looking at data. They're looking at collected data, numbers, charts, information they're getting from other scientists, information that has been peer-reviewed. So they don't look at, like, for example, the picture you have on the background right now of that galaxy.
Yeah.
Or if you ever see any amazing pictures of like nebulas and stuff on the internet and the universe, the scientist that found that galaxy or that nebula or that cloud of dust didn't see that when he found it. He saw a group of dots on a chart and some numbers. You know what I mean? That's not how it would look like observably, like if we were to go out there and see. An artist, after the fact, added in certain things to make it that pretty or that like gorgeous. But scientists don't see things like that. They're looking at data. They're just only looking at data. And it's not the work of one or two scientists. This is a combined effort over the last 100 years.
I remember taking my astronomy class, and like where they would say like, well, how do you know this planet is made up of this certain what's the word I'm looking for? Like oxygen, or if this is made of carbon, like how do you know that? So what they do is they have like this certain lenses or certain colors that appear with certain gases or certain liquids or whatever it is, and that's how they're able to collect the data.
Different elements.
Different
elements give off
different like colors.
Different things we're able to trace and
record.
record.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Like for example, they're able to determine what a star is made out of by the color of its reading.
Yeah, that was kind of mind-boggling to me. I remember like they turned off the lights and he was just giving us a demonstration of what things look like, and it was pretty interesting, because there's
and plus our eyes didn't evolve to really see anything in space. Our eyes evolved to keep us away from lions and tigers, and so we were able to function in the world we live in. Like we evolve, and even in the world we live in, we're not perfectly evolved because we eventually grow old and our bones decay and we start getting back pain and arthritis and knee pain.
Well, we're gonna start being cyborgs, didn't you know?
Eventually, that's post-humanism. That's a different topic. I'll come back later and we'll discuss singularity. Which is, by the way,
I want to get into a little bit of statistics here from the United States. These are from 2007 to 2012. It's saying that roughly about 73% of the people are Christian. The label them Christian, and they say that about 19.6 are unaffiliated. 6% is another faith, and it comes down to about like 2.4% of American adults say that they are atheists.
They also did another study that showed.
But then I've done a lot of research that says that you can't really collect this data because some people might lose office.
Exactly.
Like they could lose office, they could, and this is real. This is not like
they could lose certain healthcare.
Benefits. Yeah, they could lose certain things. By
also in Islam anyway, leaving the religion of Islam is punishable by death.
So it's like a gang.
So so if you're an atheist, technically anywhere where Sharia law is in place, you're technically.
And what's the difference between like Shia, Sunni, there's different types of, is it kind of like Protestant, Catholic?
Exactly. There are different schisms of a religion. There are branches that break off, and originally they formed when, after the Prophet Muhammad died, who was Muslims know him as the last prophet.
And how do you feel about Muslims being the new scapegoat? It used to be black people, Asian people, Hispanics. It seems like it's a new scapegoat. It's the Middle East. I don't think they're
a new scapegoat. I mean, my entire life,
What are you talking about, Mike?
Since I was a kid, I've been watching Chuck Norris beat up Arabs in movies on airplanes and stuff like that. So it's not a new thing.
Yeah, because how do you feel about
there's definitely been a lot, obviously, in the media to kind of fuel that type of ignorance. And then you see something obviously like 9/11 happens, and then an Indian guy gets beat up in New York.
Yeah, and then
they think he's Arab.
And then all of a sudden, you have a rise of certain groups and rebels, and the Middle East is I don't know. There's a lot of controversy of us being over there. Like, do you feel like the United States should be out there, being that we represent like a Christian country, going to where there's people who practice Islam, and we're out there bombing and killing people with drones? And
there's there's a lot more going on there.
No, I understand. It's very complex.
It's definitely. I mean, to answer in a kind of a slight sidestepping way, I mean, it's definitely the responsibility of a country like the U.S. not to quote unquote police the earth, but as technology grows, the earth is getting smaller and smaller. As we're able to communicate better, we're able to travel faster. The world is becoming a smaller place, and it's going to be the superpowers that have to kind of step up and take care of the countries that are kind of straggling along. Like, they need to provide education to where there isn't any. They need to provide, like Google is doing a lot of work to send up balloons to provide internet access to places that don't have any internet access. And Bill Gates is spending billions and billions of dollars every year trying to spread education, trying to spread.
But do you feel like a lot of
vaccines?
Vaccines.
But isn't a lot of this possibly
Ebola.
a possibility that it's manufactured that way to distract everybody and make it a religious thing? Because I feel like right now, like, it's just like a.
If anything, technology and the internet is reducing the amounts of religion.
Yeah.
You'll find it, because the more information people have access to, the less likely.
But are they credible sources? Do you think people actually fact check their sites? Because I mean, like when I was doing evolution, I'm going on sites, and a lot of them seem like blogs or personal opinions. Like, I'm trying to go. I like to go for facts, you know. So I mean, of course, the sources that I'm going to are going to have their agenda or whatever it is. But there's some that are more credible than others. Do you feel that the internet has become? It's just like with music, you know. Anybody's a celebrity now because they could make music and put it on YouTube. So at the same time, do you think that the internet is a good source of information?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it is. And it's actually, I've read an article on this recently. It's talking about a lot of, they're having to restructure the way they teach kids in schools now, because it's no longer really what you know, because information is so readily accessible now that you can, your smartphone can Google anything you want.
Yeah, you don't have to think anymore.
You know, but what they're having to do now is to spend a lot more time teaching kids growing up how to discern what is good information and what is bad information.
Common Core.
Plagiarism.
And the scientific method is a great way to determine what is good data and bad data. It was developed specifically to kind of cut out the bullshit. It's a series of tests.
How do you feel about, like, every time it seems like, you know, it's anthrax, it's SARS, it's MERS, there's this new thing. Right now there's Ebola. Right now there's this Christian radio host saying that Ebola could save atheism and homosexuality. And this is,
But I mean, it's probably also the same people that say AIDS was created to punish gay people, and the same people that...
Is that a possibility?
What? Absolutely not. That is not a possibility. I mean, to the amount of effort, money, and time it would take to create a disease to wipe out a specific type of people. I mean, like, you have to factor in all the collateral damage you're going to get, because it's. I mean,
what if some people just don't care?
A plague is a very religious way to solve problems.
Yeah,
it happens a lot, but
it's in the Bible.
A plague isn't. Plagues in the Bible are usually very specific to a specific people. Yeah. And it's because God has started that plague.
But then again, back then, that's all the world that they knew. You know, they didn't.
Well, they didn't know about germs. They didn't know about bacteria. They didn't.
The reason I bring that up is because I'm reading this article that says Africa confirms third Ebola victim rises from the dead. I had read previous articles saying that 2 people, the similar scenario too. Like, are they creating zombies here? Like, what's going on? Like, that's pretty crazy.
That is very improbable.
Yeah. They were asking.
So the article is saying that people they die from Ebola.
Well, what they're saying is that it could be technically, I forgot what the term was, comatose, something like that, where the body goes into shock and you're actually like kind of like your vitals go down and whatnot, but kind of like you resurrect in a way. But this has been confirmed. I was watching other outlets and they were saying that this is happening, and it's just kind of crazy, you know. It's like a Resident Evil type thing.
Scary shit, bro.
That stuff doesn't. It's fun to think about. It really is. It really is. But it's very improbable. Like the reanimation of dead tissue. I mean, that's something that we've used in fiction for a very long time, and
I mean, when you have Chinese state media putting no, Ebola isn't a zombie virus, and this is from the Washington Post. I mean, they're pretty credible. You know what I mean? Like,
widespread. Okay, large groups of people get panicked very easily.
Correct, because fear helps what?
Well, fear helps control people.
And what is religion? Usually, you fear something or someone. Don't do bad because this will happen. Don't say this because that's going to happen.
It's definitely.
Is that good or bad to you, though, Mike?
I think it depends on how you're going to. It's a case by case. You know, like me personally, I'm not gonna say I was forced into religion, but it kind of was. Like, I mean, I didn't know I was getting baptized.
Are you thinking like an individual, or are you thinking as a whole, as people, as population? People do need to be under control. We do need to make sure diseases don't spread.
And I'm not debating that. What I'm saying is that, like, who's gonna benefit from it, though? Like, the thing is,
we all are.
Like
I said that earlier. We all are. If religion is implemented into the people to have some type of morality, a moral compass, we can differentiate good from bad. Now, like you were saying, you have dark humor. Like, there's nothing wrong with that at an adult level. But when you teach children that who don't know any better, you get certain type of kids that develop this sickness for, going around.
The asterisk to that, I do have a very vulgar sense of humor. And, again, nothing is beyond being made fun of to me. But, of course, there's a time and a place for everything.
Right.
Like, it's being
why,
respectful.
Why do you have that in your head to think that? It's because your parents from your upbringing gave you the instructions of being, a gentleman around people. And then when you're with your buddies, you can goof around because you know that's your kind of crowd. So that's what I'm saying. You said, who does it benefit? I think it benefits all, but I think where you're going with is financially, who's profiting off of this.
No, I'm talking about, like, the media giants. Like, dude, they use it to their advantage. Come on. Like, religion is hijacked. They use it to fund. Every time there's some sort of corruption with some sort of church, anybody could become a pastor, a preacher. They have some sort of infomercial. They're jacking people, old people, taking them for their money. Like, this happens all the time. This is America, bro. Like, I hardly believe anything. As far as religion goes in my life, like, yeah, you know what? I accept the good. I know I shouldn't go around killing people. I shouldn't go around cheating on my wife. I shouldn't go stealing
some people
stuff.
need to be killed, bro.
I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
child molesters.
But why aren't they? Why are they released back in? And then you could go on an app, and then you could see who lives in your neighborhood. Like.
And sometimes they move from that place, so they're not even there.
A lot of this stems again from where you get your morals from.
Exactly.
And if you get your morals from a religious text, you're doing a lot of cherry picking. You're ignoring large parts of the Bible and the Quran.
This is how I feel. Anybody who's religious is a hypocrite, straight up, because everybody sins. That's the whole thing about Jesus.
I mean, but I mean, not everyone that is religious, is also holier than thou, or not everyone looks at themselves as like a perfect.
Right.
There are definitely people that feel like, because you get a lot of people that start sentences with as a man of God, which is supposed to instantly add credibility to anything he says after that, which I don't buy into. But I mean, it's the kind of, again, going back to that stigma where you can start sentences with, as a man of God, that means people have to trust you. But if I say, as an atheist, that instantly means that I eat babies and I worship the devil.
Drink blood. That's too funny, man.
Morality. Yeah, but does atheism kind of get rid of the moral accountability? I can't even fucking talk today.
No, it doesn't get rid of moral accountability, because we still live on a planet with billions of other people, and we need to.
Isn't it an excuse?
If anything, I feel anyway, atheism has made me more moral, because I strive to be a better person, and I want to be good to the people around me because it's the right thing to do, and not because I'm afraid of going to hell.
But like the lust that we have for women and lies and the pleasures that we want, we don't want to give those things up. Like our primal instincts or our animal-like behavior comes out of us.
Are you saying that doesn't exist in the Bible? Because in the Old Testament, I mean, God goes into detail in the Old Testament about the proper way to rape a Hebrew girl. And it's okay to do it if you pay her family 50 shekels and then marry her.
Damn. The Old Testament?
That's in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff like that in the Quran as well. I mean, we are,
But it was a different time and age. I mean, I'm not trying to give them any benefit of the doubt, but it's just like they didn't have the internet, they didn't have iPhones, they didn't have,
the different time and age explanation.
Like, does that come into it? Like,
is good for until a certain point. It doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
Like, for example,
I'm not trying to saying that it does make it right, but you know.
I mean, you have to remember, this was a time that women were married off as soon as they started menstruating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whatever age that is. Like the Prophet Muhammad married one of his wives when she was six. And consummated when she was 9. That's something you hear a lot. And I'm not defending or arguing that. I'm just saying that you're leaving, when you're taking your morals from a religious text, you're leaving a lot of bad stuff out. You're not and if you're able to accept those little gems of good, and then discredit everything else, you're looking at the wrong book. All
right, man. So let's get into some things you had mentioned off the air about something about our previous podcast that you wanted to discuss.
It was amusing to me because you had Dan on here.
Dan the man, yeah.
Dan the man.
Shout out to Dan.
It was just and you asked him seemingly it was at the beginning of the second half, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of out of the blue. It was just if he believed in a God and an afterlife, and then he kind of just it took him back a little bit. He was shocked. I just felt bad for the guy. I was like, those are big questions. That's like something you think about your entire life, like the afterlife.
I ask everyone, and people,
you know what I mean?
Used to call me weird for that kind of shit.
This is actually, and that goes to something I was telling you about earlier too. There's one of the stigmas of people being an atheist is something you hear all the time is, this is just a phase. You're just rebelling, which is insulting, because I mean, this is something I've thought about my entire life, and it's something I think about on a daily basis. I mean, because religion is fascinating to me. Just the concepts of gods and superpowers and all that stuff. I mean, it's all very and in a literary sense, like reading those stories, reading about the prophets and the things that they did, and then the battles they fought and stuff like that. I mean, it's all very entertaining. It's all very sensational, you know, when you learn about it. But again, it goes back to, you need to look at it as just metaphors, as just whatever, because and even when you're just looking at it like that, you're still cherry picking, because there's still a lot there that you don't want your kid to know. There's still a lot there you don't want.
Christmas, you know, like Christmas, like they bring Santa Claus. Like, at least me growing up Catholic, and where it was all about God, but at the same time, you know, to keep the kids intrigued, we got the
Christmas
Christmas
was one of the biggest pagan holidays that the Christian religion stole from the pagans and made into.
Wasn't supposedly the cross a pagan symbol as well?
It's celebrating the winter solstice.
Oh, okay. I see.
And that you know, pagans, guys with pointy hats and long white beards, very, you know, around that time they'd be celebrating the winter solstice, and that holiday started becoming more and more popular, and it was eventually taken over by.
So we live in a country where supposedly, you know, you have the freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Do you feel like you get attacked for what you represent? Like, do most people try to argue with you? Like, when you say, "Oh, I'm an atheist," like, I don't.
Well,
good question.
Well, first of all, like, it's not, you know, obviously it's not something I bring up at like dinner. If
you meet somebody out on a first date.
I mean, my close personal friends, the ones I hang out with all the time, they know that's, you know, I talk about it a lot, but. Obviously, being social, like I don't see myself being repressed, but I definitely limit, or I kind of put up a filter. It's kind of
like they say, don't bring up religion and politics when you barely meet.
There's just a time and a place. Like,
correct.
Obviously, something I don't talk about at work. It's obviously something I don't talk about.
Yeah, you could lose your job
when I'm
something
first,
like that.
Well, you could lose. You know, not even necessarily that. It's just, I mean, these are the people.
Have you ever had any incidents where somebody might have complained?
I've gotten in trouble in the past.
Yeah.
And it's usually
that dark humor.
It's usually that dark humor, yeah. But it's me making a joke.
Self-park humor.
It's usually also like someone overhearing me in another room and then complaining. It's never like it's never I'm in a room full of people and then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, there is no God. You know, I don't like do that. But
do you really believe there's no God?
I do. I believe there is no evidence to show that there would be.
But again, let's define what is a God. Define it first, because the thing is, like, that's what I try to tell people when I'm like, yeah, I believe in God, and they'll be like, right away they assume it's like the religion, and oh, you believe this, or you believe, and I'm like, look, I didn't say that I believe completely in the religion. There's things that I do agree with. I'm a cherry picker, but at the same time, like, my God to me, it's like, damn, it could possibly be the universe itself, the sun, dust. God does not necessarily have to be a human being, because that it's just funny though how people assume. Right away.
People also naturally just add human qualities
to
an omnipotent, all-powerful being. Like,
and that's something that I have trouble with.
For example, at least from an Islamic sense, God, you pray 5 times a day.
I was going to ask you, did you ever pray 5 times a day facing Mexico?
I used to.
Yeah. I remember people in high school would actually...
Which is another thing that confused me as a kid, too, because the earth is round. So technically, any way you're facing is towards the Kaaba. So, I mean, why...
what about Ramadan? Did you participate?
Again,
in Ramadan?
when I was younger, I participated, and it was something that I wholeheartedly did too. I mean, I wanted to be a part of it.
How long is Ramadan?
It's a month long.
A month long. Okay.
And we go by the lunar.
Okay, so it's comparable to like Lent with the Catholics.
In a sense.
In a sense. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's exactly the same, but
it's every day from dawn to dusk. So from sun up to sundown, there's no
Fast.
Eating, no drinking, no smoking, no sex, no. Yeah. What else is that you can't do? If you throw up, your fast has been voided.
Really?
Little stuff like that. Like if a woman is menstruating, she shouldn't fast. If blah 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 blah. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of little kind of caveats to it, but it's a month long, and then finally at the end there's Eid al-Fitr, where it's just like a big celebration. Where, but it's honestly, right now to me, Ramadan is an excuse to have a giant meal with my family every night. I try to take the positive out of it.
But couldn't that be something good? Family time, like nowadays, just with so much technology. It seems
no, absolutely.
like
that's what I'm saying. Like, I take that positivity out of it.
Okay, all right.
I don't again,
out of the religious aspect.
Because my family is still very religious, and so out of respect for them, obviously, I don't want to start a fight every night in the holiest month in the Muslim year.
Have you guys fought a lot?
It is something we've fought a lot on and continue to. We've gotten a lot more
civil about it, maybe.
Civil,
yeah. Agree to disagree. Type thing. It's kind of like me this weekend. I was having conversation with somebody, and I'm at that point. I guess I'm a little bit more mature. I'm in my 30s, and sometimes I would kind of just keep drilling at it. But then we were at a party celebrating barbecue, and the other person was just relentless. They just keep talking. No, you're kind of like, what? Trying to get into the conversation is just so one-sided. And I was just like, you know what? Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I dumbed myself down. I just killed it. I just fused it. But back then, I wasn't like that. And
when I was younger, I was definitely a lot more angry about it. So I would try to find
it's frustration
any
too when you're
opportunity
getting
I had
answers.
to like ask questions or get into an argument with somebody. But again, like that's another stigma with atheism. People think, oh, you're angry at God and you're angry at life and you're just a unhappy person altogether. Which, again, if anyone that knows me knows I'm probably one of the happiest people they know. I'm constantly optimistic, but I'm also a realist as well, as opposing as that sounds. And it's not. It doesn't come from a source of anger. I don't hate. Again, I'm fascinated by religion. I think it's awesome. Like it doesn't come from an anger. I'm not angry at God. I'm not angry at religious people. When I get angry is when they start imposing their beliefs onto my life. That's when I start becoming very vocal about it and very kind of
church and state type thing.
That's understandable.
You know what I mean? And because by all means, like we live in America. Like if you want to be religious, more power to you. I'll in your what you do in your home with you and your God, whoever that God is. It could be the flying spaghetti monster, or it could be Allah, whatever it is. Like that's up to you.
You're entitled to it.
You're entitled to it.
Yeah, and you shouldn't be persecuted for it either.
Absolutely not. You should not be persecuted. But at the same time, like you also need to realize you live in a place with other people, and they might not share the same beliefs as you. And just because you have that belief doesn't mean everyone else has to now go out of their way to coddle you or like make you comfortable.
But that's how this country is. I was actually having this discussion with my mom the other day. I was like, so many people out here, they just, oh, you're special. You're in school, and like they just try to kick this nonsense. We're like, yeah, we're all equal. You're special and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like, no, you really need to learn certain things. And I wanted to touch into the Common Core. I know we were off the mics, but how do you feel about that being implemented into schools?
Honestly, I'm probably not the right person to talk to about it. I mean, Common Core, I am for. Anything that promotes, more math and science in schools.
And Bill Gates is behind this, correct? Like his money?
So. Yeah.
Yeah, the Bill Gates and
Absolutely.
Melinda Foundation.
I mean, it's again, anything that promotes, more basic knowledge of science and math in schools.
There's kind of like an uproar online, though. I don't know, from what I've seen, it seems like there's some really dumb questions that they're asking these kids, and people are kind of like questioning it. Is that just like the internet being the internet?
It gets questioned on a local level because you have schools in other states that things like they want to teach creationism alongside evolution, things like that.
Yeah.
And what Common Core does is it makes it so that teachers aren't allowed to actually choose what to teach their students. There are certain topics they have to cover.
I see.
That gives, at least that's what I.
From my understanding is that from Common Core is like they pretty much want everybody all over the country to be on like the same page, the same thing, the same day, something like that.
We're definitely not number one in mathematics and stuff like that.
There's in India number one, somebody like that. But back to the atheism stuff, because I think that's what the topic is, and evolution. You don't think there's a correlation there? Like, people that are religious, they think when you die you go to heaven. They think this earth is here because of God. When we look at this picture right here of us floating in outer space,
it seems like a waste of a universe now.
Well, that's a good way of looking at it. I
Because
remember
we're able to tell that the universe is as massive as it is. We're able to tell how long it's been there, how far things are through observable sciences. And it just seems like a giant waste of space for one instant little pebble.
Well, look at the other
with
planets
life on
around
them.
us. There's no life on them. Does that maybe ring a bell? Maybe there was life and they all blew each other up too?
There are traces of water and stuff on
Mars.
But there might be bacteria, though. That's a life form, right?
Microbial life,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we're life as we know it. People and airplanes and cars and stuff like that. We can't find any evidence of that so far, and we've been looking. The SETI organization has been looking for decades now, and we're not looking for. They're looking for like radio waves. They're looking for any signs of near planet like travel at all. Any signs of larger space stations. They're looking for any discernible sign that that might show intelligent life. Because I mean, obviously, we can observe planets. And we can tell like what their atmospheres are made out of, you know what I mean, and that would give us indicators of whether or not life could possibly form there. But we're only coming from carbon-based life forms that need water and oxygen to survive. There could be other forms of life out there. For example, one moon that's very exciting to me is Europa. Europa is a moon of Jupiter, and this is a moon that's entirely encased in about 2 miles of ice. And underneath that ice is a giant liquid ocean. And there's like about 3 times more water on Europa than there is on the planet Earth. There's liquid water there underneath ice. So by all means, there could very potentially be life living underneath the ice.
Right.
It could be like some whales.
Who knows? And that's another thing humans do. They always, when they're presented with something that they've never seen or heard of before, they always instantly try to add human attributes to it. Like, when you think of an alien, you think of it
walks on 2 legs.
Walks on 2 legs.
Yeah.
It has arms. It has eyes and a head, and it looks like a deformed human. When we actually have no idea what life on other parts of the universe could be like. It could be a cloud of dust. It could be we have no discernible way to see that. We're looking for, or scientists rather are looking for evidence that would.
And I'm looking up some facts on this moon right here, and it's saying that this was discovered January 8th, 1610.
Mm-hmm.
So this is that's crazy, because I believe back then obviously there wasn't as much light on the Earth, so you could see the stars more vividly and things like that. But just goes to show you how mathematics and education goes a long way. Where they were seeing this is in Jupiter. I mean, that's out there.
Absolutely.
Right? That's pretty amazing stuff. And how do you feel about us sending out satellites? Was it in the 70s? I forget the exact name of the satellite that was sent.
Voyager 1.
The Voyager, there we go. Yeah, that it was playing like the Beatles or...
Well, they have, on the Voyager 1, there's a laser disc, or there's a sheet of gold also just inscribed with our position in the galaxy, in addition to music, pieces of literature, stuff like that. But in case some form of life somewhere in the universe comes across our little thing that has less computing power than your cell phone. But this amazing satellite, Voyager 1, is still out there, and it's sent off in the 70s. It's still sending data back to Earth. Very recently, in the last few months, it has officially crossed into interstellar space. Wow. And is now...
So that's pretty deep.
It is now outside of the influence of our sun. So there's something called the heliosphere, which is our sun obviously is blasting radiation in every direction. And that's protecting us from a lot of the radiation coming from outside of our solar system, because there's a place where the interstellar radiation is kind of hitting our solar radiation. And then as soon as the Voyager crosses this kind of boundary, this invisible boundary, they were just getting flooded with all these readings of different radiation sources and stuff like that. So that they could finally say that the very first man-made thing ever has now crossed into interstellar space.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
It's in a NASA American mission.
Wow.
More power to America.
Isn't that awesome?
Right? That
Seriously,
is
I mean,
cool.
honestly, that stuff makes me so patriotic. It is ridiculous how patriotic I get. Like, very recently...
Our space program was the best in the world, right?
Well,
I say it was.
But I mean,
it's about to be revolutionized with SpaceX and...
It started to become more private because because honestly
no
NASA
funding.
doesn't get anywhere near the funding. They get a substantial amount of funding. Don't get me wrong, but it's not enough to meet my goals anyway. I want to get to Mars. I want to travel. I want to go up into space. So, and it's just very recently at the I'm pretty sure the exhibit's still there. You might have to check. for me. But at the Natural History Museum, right next to that, in LA, there is a space museum, or Aeronautics and Space Museum, and they had one of the shuttles there on display. And I remember going there. It was the first time I'd ever seen an actual space shuttle in person. And this shuttle had done missions for decades, like years and years of missions.
That's awesome.
And you can see, like, just being in that room, like you're pulling up the picture on the screen right now, being in that room and seeing the shuttle in person, it was very moving for me. Like, it was a very emotional moment for me. Like, this was a piece of man-made technology
that was in space,
that has been in space many times.
Oh, this was the one that was riding on top of that other plane?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. And they had to cut down there's a big old fuss because they had to cut down all these trees for its wingspan.
And they had to shut down traffic on like 6 different streets in Los Angeles to get.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
But it was.
Yeah, this passed by Orange County.
It made me, and seeing the American flag on that space shuttle just made me so patriotic.
So how did you feel about the Pledge of Allegiance? You know, when it said it had God in it, like, how did you feel about that?
I mean, that change was made back in the 50s. It used to be indivisible, just and then they changed it to under God. One nation. It used to be one nation indivisible. Now it's one nation under God. Now that was a change made back in the 50s to keep us scared of those godless commies.
But I referenced this on most shows. It's kind of like the manifest destiny. We're saying that we're chosen by God, you know, when they came to the Americas. Religion, they were obviously...
There's been so many world leaders and civilizations that were quote-unquote chosen by God to be this, and they've all ended. They've all failed. Like that, the chosen by God thing has been so played out in human history.
How do you feel about like these ancient civilizations? You know, like, do you think that they had a god, or was Mother Nature, the Earth, their god? You know,
it was their explanation for things. It was how, with the best of what they had.
Because I know, like, for instance, like the calendar. You know, the Aztec calendar is very accurate, more accurate than the one used today. Mm-hmm. How did that happen? Did they have influence from alien sources, or what do you believe as far as
it comes from inspiration. It comes from
magic mushrooms,
a curiosity. That's one of the theories. It comes from a curiosity and a questioning, and it comes from first developing a system of language and a way of taking record, because
it seems like mathematics. You know, it's worldwide.
A lot of old science, like when I say old science, a lot of science was done like back in the day by people of wealth, people that came from comfortable backgrounds. This is basically stuff they would do in their spare time. Like they would start like the North London Geological Society, you know what I mean? And then they would go about studying rocks together. It would be like people that would go on these expeditions to remote places on the Earth and then just plot out the stars in the sky. And then hundreds of years of people plotting the stars in the sky, we can sit there and look at all those records and notice, like, well, okay, wow, the stars are moving. They are, first of all, they're in. We can track what time of year it is by seeing, you know, which stars are in the sky.
And how close are the stars?
The stars are.
I can't pick one.
No,
because people have a misconception about space and stars, because the light that we're seeing from the stars is old light, you know, because it takes so long to travel.
That's literally millions of years old.
Correct. That's
when you look up in the night sky,
it's pretty mind blowing right there to think of it that way.
It takes that long at the speed, like, okay. I'm trying to remember the distance to the nearest star, which is Alpha Centauri. But I believe it's like, if you want to pull it up on...
Yeah, I'm going to try to look that up. What was
it called? It's, I forget however many light years. Alpha Centauri.
Oh, okay. 4.22 light years from Earth.
That means it takes light 4.2 years to go from Alpha Centauri to here. That's how far it is. At the speed of light, it takes 4 years.
And the speed of light is pretty fast.
So that means if we wanted to travel to Alpha Centauri, if we could travel at the speed of light, which is impossible for anything that has mass to do...
unless you're a god.
Unless you're a god. If you were traveling at the speed of light, it would take 4.2 years for you to get to Alpha Centauri, and that's the closest star to us. There are stars that are 13,000 light years away from us.
So we don't have to worry about stars falling from the sky and hitting us?
No. And for one of the signs of the apocalypse is like the stars will fall from the sky and land on Earth. And that's obviously impossible because, well, first of all, whoever wrote that clearly doesn't know how large a star is, because our sun is a star. and the Earth is like nowhere near a fraction of the size of the sun, it would get gobbled up by the sun instantly. So it's it's near impossible. It is impossible for a star to fall from the sky onto Earth. They are very, very far away. The universe is massive, mind-blowingly, insanely massive. Fact check me on this.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure just from the distance from the Earth to the moon, you can actually line all 8 planets side by side in just the distance from the Earth to the moon. The moon is actually a lot further away than a lot of people think, but it's big, and it's closer than other things.
238,900 miles.
Damn.
That's a lot of gas.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is crazy. Yeah, and so you truly do believe that we landed on the moon?
Absolutely.
Okay. Why haven't we gone back? Is there aliens on the moon?
We went to the moon because of military reasons. We wanted to beat the Russians. We have no, we don't have that driving force in our current space program.
So it was just kind of for bragging rights.
Well, we wanted to get there before the Russians, and everything we did in space, the Russians actually the Russians were actually the first ones to send a satellite up there. They were the first ones.
The one with the monkey.
They were the first ones to send a human into space. We were the first to land on the moon and walk out and plant the flag and take pictures and stuff like that. But I believe Russia and China are currently both in plans to build permanent lunar bases. The moon is a giant resource for He3, and I don't understand why.
What is He3?
Helium-3 is a element or a compound, or it's a He3. I'm going to get into the chemistry of it. So He3 is an element that you find on the moon. It's produced when radiation from the sun gets absorbed into the solar or into the lunar soil. And it's very difficult to make here on Earth. The only way to make it is made in tiny quantities, and it's a byproduct of cleaning nuclear weapons, of nuclear waste. But what's awesome about it is it's an element that can be used to fuel clean nuclear reactions and nuclear fusion reactions. And this is basically where we would be able to have just insane amounts of energy for us to use for electricity, for anything.
Better than solar?
Well, comparable with solar, because the only waste that gets created with this type of reaction is water. It's water vapor.
So the moon is made of water.
The moon is made up of soil that has absorbed He3 from the radiation coming from the sun.
Because we sent like a missile into the moon or something like that. Didn't we like hit it with some sort of object? I remember seeing that.
There was one terrorist group that was threatening to blow up the moon. That seems like such a Bond villain type thing to do.
Right. Kind of reminds me of Austin Powers or something.
Exactly.
That's some fun stuff, man.
But I mean, it's definitely there is. In my eyes, there's definitely a race still on, and it saddens me that the U.S. hasn't pushed as hard to be, again, the number one country out there. I mean, India was literally just this week, I think, or just last week, became the first Asian country to send a spacecraft to Mars.
Yeah.
They were also the first country in the world to do it on their first try, which is awesome.
Yeah, that is
because
pretty awesome.
A lot of people don't know this, but the UK actually sent a rover up to Mars before the US did. And as soon as I think it either crash landed or it landed, and then they lost all communication with it.
Oh, man.
But I mean, the US wasn't even the first one on Mars.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it constantly sends back images, and all the conspiracy theorists are like, oh look, there's a ball, or oh look, there's a stoplight, because there was some on the moon, and I was actually watching an episode of Ancient Aliens that they were saying that it looks like there's like a satellite on the moon, and like just all sorts of things, and it looks like there's some sort of underground base. I mean, who knows?
The amount of money and time and people it would take to
find that out.
to fund that whole, like, are you saying like the lunar landing was faked? Is that what we're talking about?
I mean, this is my thing. I think we possibly went there, but there was maybe something like, hey, don't come back, because that's what they argue too, is that it was just like after
they found
mission,
something and
yeah,
they didn't want to bring it back.
Well, there is a dark side of the moon that we never get to see, right?
Eventually we see it.
Eventually, because I was thinking that there was a side of the moon that we never get to see. Like
that we can't see. Well, there's a dark side of the Earth too. Yeah, right. And it doesn't necessarily mean bad things are happening there. Yeah. It's just we're unable to look up in the sky and see it because it's not facing the sun. but it's there. But there's no reason to believe
Yeah.
that
This
on
is
the
what-
other side there's like
I guess-
civilizations.
I
and
know,
stuff.
but I guess that's what he's saying is that we don't get to see that side of it.
So we really
We don't ever get to see it. We
on
can
not with our
speculate.
naked eye, but we've sent
But does it rotate eventually to the point where we do see that side of
every
it?
inch of the moon has been mapped. We've sent satellites to orbit the moon and map. Through cameras and digital equipment? They've mapped every inch of the moon and Mars.
Wow,
Like
Every
we know,
inch?
we know what the moon looks like on every side.
crazy.
Yeah, this is what I was referencing earlier. It says NASA moon bombing a hit, but lacrosse is LCROSS impact invisible. So yeah, it looks like they sent 2 spacecraft bombing into the moon, and this was October 9, 2009.
That's worded very,
Yeah.
very weird. So what happened? What was going on there is that was a satellite that was orbiting the moon that had finished its mission and was about to go out of commission. And it was designed to basically just crash land on the moon once it was done, rather than just float around in space.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what I was referring to. So that's what it was.
Yeah,
was just,
it wasn't.
Oh,
We
okay.
weren't sending missiles.
Oh,
to the moon or
okay.
anything.
I was like, man,
that was pre-planned from the beginning. They knew that satellite was going to die at that point, and then stop sending data, and then if they just had it crash land on the moon because there's nothing there.
That's pretty crazy, man.
And then space debris is starting to become a huge issue.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about. All the trash that's orbiting our Earth, and crashing satellites.
It's trash in the sense that it's we don't want it there, but it's not. It's all it is old rockets from all the space missions. It's old defunct satellites that are starting to be just floating around there in orbit. So that's definitely an issue that they're going to have to find a way to deal with. And what's really exciting to me when I think about it is all the different businesses and all the different jobs that are going to be created once space becomes a big thing. Because, like does
space go hand in hand with religion? Do you think that some people might oppose it, kind of like stem cell research, saying that you're learning too much?
I don't know. It does.
How do you feel about stem cell research? Because
It's amazing.
Because there's a lot of people saying like, oh yeah, you're playing God, and a lot of religious groups.
We were playing God when we made wolves into dogs. Like we were playing God when we've been playing God.
Domesticating animals.
We've been playing God the entire time we've been on this earth.
So it's kind of like pick and choose, you would say, for people. Because I love science. Ever since I was young, I used to love science, watching Bill Nye the Science Guy and just watching experiments. And it just seems that like when something comes out that could possibly save a lot of humans, like stem cell research, we would want to fund it. But then you get a lot of people who are just like, oh, you're playing God. But the way I look at it is like you're playing God when you get plastic surgery and you alter your body.
Yeah.
You're playing God when you go to the dentist and you fix your teeth to make them straight and more wider. Like you're playing, it's
You're
just
you're trying to play God when you pray, by the way.
How so?
Well, God has a plan, right?
He has a plan?
What if what you want goes against his plan?
Like praying to win the lottery? Most people I know that pray
Like
for all
this
the wrong things.
Picture right here.
What does that say?
I'm trying to.
Why is God's mysterious plan not to your satisfaction? Exactly. No, and that's.
I'm not trying to put God down, but I mean, yeah, you're right. If God has an almighty plan, why do you pray to make it change?
And that's what sometimes say, like, why would all this bad war be going on, all this famine, all these, Ebola, like, if there is a God? And I know people kind of question it that way, but yet in the Bible or the commandment says, like, you shouldn't question your God, right? Or something like that along those lines.
Right. Never
And
question.
actually, one thing I can say about Islam, there are a lot of points in the Quran that does say educate yourself, learn to read, go
Except
out and
if
ask
you're
questions,
a woman? No, I'm just
which
kidding.
it's weird because a lot of the actions that those people take, like for example, SpaceX. Again, I'm going to keep bringing up Elon Musk and SpaceX.
No, that's an awesome company. I like reading about
SpaceX,
them.
but
Yeah.
so SpaceX has the Mars 1 mission. This was a mission that they are planning to set up the first human colony on Mars, and they took volunteers. Over 200,000 people volunteered, including myself. I had to write an essay, submit it on their website,
So you would really go.
and it's a one-way mission
Wow.
to Mars. You're going there, and that's it. I got so excited. I signed up as soon as I found it.
Coming in
That's
from
amazing.
Mars is
That's
Eddie.
amazing.
What?
Well, I mean, who wouldn't want to be on that team? Like, even if it failed miserably, people would know who you are for eternity. You'd be immortal at that point because everyone knows who Neil Armstrong is. Everyone knows who John Glenn is. You know what I mean? The first people that stepped on the moon, everyone knows who they are. So the first 30 people that show up on Mars are going to be remembered forever. So I mean, of course, I want to be a part of that, but the kind of head Islamic religious leaders in Dubai, actually, after that came out, they came up and said that Muslims aren't allowed to go.
Wow.
Really?
Because it's a suicide mission.
Oh, that's kind of ironic. I'm gonna laugh to that.
Which it's. I'm gonna let that settle for all the listeners.
Marinate on that.
Muslims aren't allowed to go because it's a suicide mission. You're not going to return to Earth, so it's as good as killing yourself, which is also against Islam. You're not allowed to commit suicide.
Kind of a lot of people commit suicide in the name of religion, though.
Well, it's not considered suicide at that point. It's
because you're a martyr.
It's considered martyrdom.
Or
they look at it. That's how they're convinced. That's how they justify it in their heads.
I've heard a lot of things where they says like they promised 72 virgins or something along those lines.
Ridiculous.
I think that's kind of cool. I'd do it. I'm just kidding. I kind of feel for them though.
But the concept of heaven. First of all, heaven. First of all, there's 7 levels of heaven in Islam, which makes me mad. Why is there 7 levels of heaven? Why? And then obviously
the first layer is not good enough.
God and Muhammad is in the top. They're at the 7th level, and everyone else is progressively going up depending on.
Kind of like the caste system in India.
And this is something I brought up to my dad. It's a lot of fun to talk about. But I'm telling him so you're telling me
level 1.
If I spend my whole life working hard at becoming being a good person and being a Muslim and blah blah blah, and I make it to heaven, there's still someone having a better time than me. There's still someone up there this is heaven, I'm loving it, but what's going on behind that velvet rope?
What's upstairs
to level 2 and 3?
What's that music up there?
I hear bass up there. Is there a club up there?
That's too funny, man.
Then you knock on the door yo, let me in.
I don't see you on the list, sir.
That's funny, man.
Reminds me of The Simpsons where Bart's going up to heaven on the escalator and he's like, do not spit over, and then he spits and it just goes all the way down. I remember that episode.
The Simpsons, Matt Groening talks about it all the time. The Simpsons is a very Old Testament type. The God in The Simpsons is very Old Testament because he actually answers prayers and he shows up and he does things and like Flanders, for example. Todd gets into a river and he's floating away. Like, Flanders to God. Please save Todd. And then you see him, a lightning bolt comes down and saves him.
I said, shut your ugly face!
With all that aspect of, with God being in The Simpsons and being pretty much a cartoon, do you think it's kind of laughable to some people in America where it's kind of like religion is not taken as seriously, where it's kind of just people go through the motions, they show up to church just because
that's how most,
it's kind of like school in a way.
Most religious people you meet aren't fanatics. They're not the guys protesting outside
the extremists,
abortion clinics and stuff like that. They're just
going about their life,
they're going about their life being good people and They you get a lot of people with it, like in Islam, for example. We have lots of Muslims, obviously, that are just like you and me, that go about their daily business, and, never have a violent thought against anyone outside their faith their whole life. But the fault still falls on those people as well.
How so?
Because they're basically admitting that we're cherry picking. We're only taking the good out of here. Yeah. But they're not voting against they're not voting against the religious things that are imposing on people's human rights. They're not voting. How many times did they have to propose the Prop 8 thing in California?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was shut down by Mormons in Utah.
Yeah.
They're not going out of their way.
How do you feel about gay marriage? That's,
I'm for it. Why would I?
Yeah, I mean, it's 2
They're
people.
able to fight and die in our military. Why can't they get married? That's ridiculous. And it's just marriage to me. It's not gay marriage. It's just,
and the divorce rate is over 50% anyways, right? I mean, who cares, right? They want to get married, be miserable, let them.
I mean, I work a lot in finance and some of the communities that I've worked in, you see people that are in their 4th and 5th marriage.
Wow.
You see people
divorce money.
You see people that literally just ended their marriage, and then it's the race to
get back into the game.
Oh no, the race to get to the checking account first, to drain it. That's usually what it is.
Yeah, well, divorce is kind of like a business in a way, because
it's a huge industry here.
Yeah, especially if there's no prenup.
Again, marriage isn't sacred. Marriage isn't. If we're going by a biblical or Quranic sense of what a sacred quote unquote marriage is,
I had to pay money to get married, man. I thought it'd be free.
Hell no.
Nope.
Like,
You got to
nope.
get that license. Uncle Sam's got to get a cut.
How do you feel about there's certain places in this day and age where it's 2014, I believe, I want to say Israel, there's a huge the Jews and the Palestinian people, the Muslims. There was actually a Jewish girl who was marrying a Palestinian. He was Muslim. I believe they lived in Israel, and there was death threats. There's people just like
that happens all the time.
And
I got trouble for a girlfriend I had years and years and years ago. She was Jewish, and I got some slack for that from my community.
Really?
Like it exists. It happens.
Yeah, no, I used to constantly hear, a lot of things back and forth to all kinds of things. But yeah, that's kind of crazy to think that, that happened. Because too many people...
In 2014, that's still happening.
That's exactly
It's like the only two people in Israel that aren't trying to kill each other.
Yeah, they're trying to make it better.
And people are threatening them for being happy.
And
together.
that's why
It's
peace
ridiculous.
talks fail miserably, it's unfortunate, it's really crazy, man, what's going on.
But again, it stems from an unending belief and faith in an old, outdated system that does not work anymore. It does not apply to us anymore.
So you think, do you have faith in anything? Like, who do you have faith in?
I have faith in my friends. I have faith in my coworkers. I have faith that the government will keep stoplights working. Just because I'm an atheist doesn't mean I don't have faith in things. It's what I have faith in.
And I think that's a misconception in America. It's like, oh, you're this, you're that, then you have no morals.
Oh, you're an atheist. You don't believe in anything.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's simply not true. I believe in my friends. I believe in the power of music. If you want to get cliche and weird
It's
about
hypnotic.
it, it's not a lack of beliefs. It's just knowing what to put those beliefs in. There are certain things that you need to believe, and there are certain things that you need to trust or know. And I don't believe in science. I trust science because I know how science is done.
Wow.
I have an understanding of the process it takes for someone to, for someone to go from like just some random finding they have on a study they're running, and to go from that, their little aha moment, to like printing it in a medical journal or announcing it on a science or presenting it in front at a convention before other scientists. There are lots of steps involved to okay that report or that paper or that finding or that equation, whatever it is that you find. There are it has to go through very many people. For example, this is one very small example. There's this crazy, I can't remember her name, but there's this crazy lady that very recently announced that she had found evidence of the existence of Sasquatch, of Bigfoot. She had found like a chunk of hair and some blood tissue and some blood and some skin tissue.
I read about that.
And she reported that her findings were not her findings were not human and were not any animal that we've recorded previously. And then of course everyone was like, awesome, let's see the data. And of course every medical journal, every biological journal just completely shunned her. They're like, no, this isn't evidence. This is not what we're looking for. This is not how you prove something exists. So she bought out a lesser known medical journal and then printed her own paper in a medical journal, which then the scientific community came out the next day like, that is such crap. And they made it very clear that they actually got her.
And that's the problem too, is that everybody coming out here could kind of go publish whatever they want, and it's like some people.
The magic of the internet.
Yeah, it's the magic of a lot of things.
But with science, it doesn't necessarily work like that. And you got to remember, like a lot of the people, the quote unquote scientists. This isn't Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson. Those are the people you see on TV.
Yeah.
But the people that are doing this research, or the people that are finding these things, are just regular people. These are grad students. These are people that are working under professors.
Are most scientists religious?
There are scientists that are. I mean, it depends on what field of science they're going into.
Okay.
You can be a scientist and be religious. There's nothing, but I mean, they're less likely to.
How about the Vatican had recently, I want to say like a year ago or so, had like actually came out and said that there is a possibility of like UFOs or like alien life forms or something. Like they kind of saying something. Well, that's huge. That's fucking big, dude. Like, I mean, a religion standpoint, that's about huge. Time. Because like some people, they deny it. It's just kind of like they said, like, we have a problem with priests molesting kids and whatnot. But then again,
this particular pope. A lot of people, he's definitely a lot more liberal than.
Yeah, well, he's not European,
ones, but
he's not European.
He's Argentine, I believe, right?
Yeah, he's from Argentina. That's correct.
Those crazy Argentines and their wine and matati.
Yeah, but no, he seems. I mean, I honestly like. I kind of got a little bit of faith restored. When I saw this guy, I was like, man, he seems more human. He seems more like passionate. He's like, he has compassion in his heart. He has love. To me, at the end of the day, it all comes down to...
He's still the Pope. He still has an entire city to himself. He still has a palace with a throne.
He does.
That's still billions of dollars worth of stuff that should be either in a museum.
But that's like saying like a good cop. He goes to the forest. Oh, but there's still cops killing. There's always still going to be good people though. Like you can't down a whole foundation over and generalize. It's kind of saying, oh, black people and Mexicans, they're all criminals. It's like, no, that's not true.
But I mean, he hasn't done anything to. For example, like when Catholic priests in Africa tell people to not use contraception, when HIV and AIDS is such a huge problem.
Yeah.
It's little things like that.
Yeah, well, again, it's going to be a different area. I don't live in Africa. I don't know what it's like. I've never been there. I don't know how the values are. I don't know how these people grow up. From what I do see, it seems more like tribal. They don't have access to the internet like we do. They don't have the computer in their hand. That's one thing I say about the Middle East. I've never been there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it's like for these people to be out there. Have you ever been to the Middle East or any parts?
I was born in Beirut in Lebanon.
How was that?
Well, I mean, we moved here when I was 3, so like my flashes of that part of my life are very brief. Like I still remember what my house looked like. I still remember hanging out with my aunts and stuff. But I've gone back there as an adult, obviously, and it's a huge culture shock. I mean, we get used to. It was very humbling for me, and it was very eye-opening for myself to come back. Anytime.
Is there religious propaganda anywhere by any chance, or is that just kind of like a Western fantasy of how they see the Middle East?
Lebanon is half Roman Catholic or half Christian, half Muslim, pretty much.
Oh,
and there's also some sprinklings of like Druze Islam and different.
So is there a lot of conflict at times, or are people usually
surprisingly
kind of tolerant?
It's kind of surreal. Like I remember being there, and you'd have like a big. Thanks for the
Aladdin music
for the stereotypical Arab. It's kind of surreal because you'll see Roman Catholic churches and stuff across the street from a mosque, and you'll hear church bells and the call for prayer, and there's still Roman ruins in Lebanon. Like Lebanon's a beautiful place. It's very surreal there, and it was also very scary because I'm not used to seeing military checkpoints, tanks on different corners.
Yeah, like straight up just tanks ready to go.
Just a tank chilling there with a dude. One guy with an AK sitting in front of it.
Yeah.
And just you don't ever drive down Culver in Irvine and see a tank.
Yeah.
It's just not something you're used to seeing.
And just so people know, Lebanon borders Syria.
Lebanon has Israel to the south, and then the rest of it is surrounded by Syria.
Oh wow.
And it's kind of like. There's always something going on.
So even if it's kind of peaceful there's always something going on around it. It seems like
it's in a very volatile part of the world, and like for example, right now it's also a place where a lot of refugees come because right now there's a lot more like Syrian refugees in Lebanese.
I could only imagine, especially with the last couple of weeks with the bombing from the Obama administration.
So I mean, of course, me kind of going over there, super Americanized. Like I'm used to things like running electricity constantly and hot and cold water. Toilets everywhere you go. It's just stuff you expect. But for example, my uncle takes me down to. I know there's a story you want me to tell. But I'm gonna tell a different one, which one's even fun. I think it's funnier. But I'm in southern Lebanon with my uncle, and we're this is a place that was previously occupied by Israel. It was this valley. It was beautiful. We had been driving around, and I get out of the car, and I'm just blindly kind of taking pictures and stuff, and big blue fence with a big sign with Arabic written on it. No selfies on this tour. It was nothing but disposable cameras. It was
nice.
It was. So anyway, so I'm like just oblivious to everything going on around me. I completely ignore whatever sign that is. I'm kind of starting to wander, and I'm taking pictures. I'm wandering into this kind of like clearing part, and I hear my uncle screaming, and I turn around. I'm like, what's going on? He's just bolting. He's running at me. He grabs me, like throws me back over that little blue fence. He's like, "Didn't you read the sign?" I'm like, "No, I didn't read the sign. I was taking pictures." He's like, "That's a landmine field."
What the fuck? Just like that?
And was just wandered, just haphazardly, just taking pictures, oblivious, right into a landmine field.
Damn.
Just like stuff like that. Like
something you wouldn't expect out here.
Yeah, that's not something you ever have to deal with here. So I mean, and people in Lebanon party. Those guys party super.
Yeah,
and Lebanon right now has the best nightlife in the entire Middle East, and the reason for that is, you never know
when you're gonna go.
What's gonna happen tomorrow? Like, is today the day a car bomb goes off outside my building?
Well, I was hearing a lot of people out in the Middle East.
Israel was recently bombing Beirut because of like Hamas and all those organizations that are inside, or Hezbollah or Hamas, I forget which one, but there's a lot of groups inside Lebanon as well.
Yeah, it's
and then Israel retaliates against all of Lebanon, and Lebanon's a tiny country too. It's like the size of Orange County.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy, man.
That was an interesting thing. Funny you put that sound thing, because I remember even in high school, like, we'd be learning about nuclear bombs and stuff like that, and at one point the class stopped and was like,
"They all looked at you.
What's a plutonium bomb?" And everyone just turns their heads and looks at me, like you know what I mean?
That's scary.
Like, I grew up learning about advanced ballistics, but
you've been around it. You've been around it. You probably know
man.
more than 80. That's for sure.
That's too funny.
What do we know here in America? Fast food and bad television.
But I mean, the reason for that, I mean, America's huge. California is freaking big. Like,
we are fat. Yes.
And a lot of other parts of the world, you drive 4 hours in any direction, and you're in a different language, different country, different currency. But in California, you drive 4 hours, you're still in California.
That's true, and that's what I try to tell people.
We're not forced to associate. We're not forced to socialize with other countries as much as other countries are. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, people in the UK are constant. You can take a tram underneath the channel and go into France. And when you're in France, you can just, any other country there is just a train ride away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's very easy to travel and learn about other people and other cultures, whereas in America,
probably be a little bit more tolerant.
There are people that never leave
the suburbia.
Exactly. There are people that never leave the county they were born in. There are people that will always just live in that part of America.
People won't even say hello walking down the street. It's like, it's weird, man. People, I don't know. It's just different out here. It really is, especially like South County. Well,
and that's actually, my parents are guilty of that as well. I mean, they're very reclusive.
I think we all are.
I mean, they don't. When I go to my parents' house, I know their neighbors more than they do. Like, they don't go out and do the neighborly thing, like come over, like, "Hi, we just moved in." They don't do any of that.
I'm Phil.
Here's some baklava.
Exactly. So it was up to me to kind of introduce us to the people that lived around us at the time, like. And that comes from a fear. That comes from.
Yeah, it definitely does. A stereotype, I mean, it definitely does.
Especially from the situation that they were leaving from. Like, because we came here in '87, which is right at the Civil War was ending. It's like at the height of the Civil War.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a lot of Middle Easterns out here in America, and it's...
There's a huge Lebanese population in Detroit and Anaheim. I mean, we're kind of spread out. My family specifically is all... I have family all over the world.
So you speak another language?
I grew up speaking Arabic.
Arabic? That's cool.
And it's obviously not
because the U.S. has no official language.
Not anymore. I like in Lebanon, for example. I believe it's the languages are Arabic, French, and English. Those are the 3 languages that people get taught in schools.
Yeah, I remember going out. I have a cousin who actually. Well, I call him a cousin, but he actually lives out there in France, and he was saying that people out there have like 4 or 5 degrees and they all speak like 4 or 5 languages, But when I went out to Europe, like you're saying, you drive a little bit, boom, you're here, you're there, you're all over, and it's really
very easy to explore Europe. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a crap ton of shit to explore in the U.S.
Yeah,
I've barely scratched the surface of the states I've driven through and places I've been in the U.S. So there's still tons of places I want to see. Like even in New Mexico, I never thought I'd ever want to go to New Mexico for anything.
Oh, I passed through there. There's really nothing to see.
Exactly, but there's
a
national park. There's a national park in New Mexico that I read has the best stargazing out of any other place in the U.S.
Really?
If you want to go see a clear night sky, go look. There's a national park in New Mexico. Is the place to go there.
Yeah, it's all this artificial light, man. It's just killing everything. The chemtrails. Everything, bro.
Chemtrails.
It's just it's a bunch going on, man. Yep, man. Well, definitely really appreciate you coming in today, man. I mean, what is the daily life of Eddie? What is it, man? Are you out here, trying to preach to people? Are you out here staying to yourself? Or what do you do, man?
My daily life. Oh, I do have a day job.
Most of us.
I work for a bank in finance. So I'm doing that during the day, but then at night is when I kind of come out and start doing my own thing. So I write a lot of music on my own. I post it up on my SoundCloud.
And I think music brings a lot of people together, you know, like you said earlier about like, you know, music and religion, and music's awesome, you know, because sometimes you don't even understand the lyrics, or it doesn't even have to have lyrics, and you're just vibing out to the melody and the beat. And that's how I've made a lot of friends besides Herbal Remedy. But
no,
yeah,
it's great. I definitely,
awesome.
there's a lot of relationships I have now that were definitely spawned through music.
You want to plug in your SoundCloud to the people out there?
No, I'm not here to plug it in.
Come on, man.
Like,
people want to learn more about you.
At the wisest nug at SoundCloud.
The wisest nug.
Yeah, so that's all my electronic stuff, and then We Are Bashes is the band.
Cool.
But again, I'm not here to like plug anything. I came here to chill and talk with you guys and have a fun conversation.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
about evolution and religion.
It's all about opening your mind, being tolerant.
Evolution.
Yeah, you know, religion is just, I try not to bring it up just because I know people are really sensitive towards the issue. And if it gets brought up, I'm not going to back down either, though, from what I believe and my questioning and stuff like that. You know?
It's definitely a sensitive issue, but
definitely.
But I mean, people need to realize that they're being presented. Okay, the scientists that are doing this research, that are finding these things out, that are trying to make the world better for us, aren't working for a major pharmaceutical company, aren't working for a television station. I'm saying like these people are just regular people. They're grad students. They're just, you know, they're working towards a PhD. They're doing research. They're working underneath professors. They're working with projects. A lot of times, like this, a lot of scientists you hear that discovered these things discovered them in grad school.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like they're just searching through data, and even NASA.
Yeah, it's always from like a university.
NASA has just hard drives and hard drives full of data they haven't even looked at, that we've been compiling
kind of
over
like
decades.
the NSA.
Well, no. This is data they've collected. Observing the universe through satellites and things like that. They're just photos, photos and graphs, and NASA is even through the NASA website. You can go on there as just like an amateur astronomer, and you can help them. You can start sifting through this data yourself too.
That's
a lot of this is how they've discovered asteroids. This is how they discover different like star clusters and things like that, stuff that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, I just feel like education has to be out there, because that definitely is a key, you know, to enlightening people. I feel like a lot of people are just so closed-minded because they're just not educated to think outside of the box and to think for themselves.
But science gets a stigma of being very cold and or
Heartless.
Scientists get a stigma of being very cold and heartless, especially because like there's something they do all the time. Well, you know, a scientist invented the nuclear bomb. Like science can be if we start stem cells and cloning, we'll be playing God, and they'll be creating abominations and blah 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 blah. That's not going to happen, and it's not going to happen because the more regular people are even just slightly a little bit more educated in the scientific process and how things get done and why they're doing the research they're doing, that prevents things like that from happening. The more you know about the scientific method, the more you educate yourself. And this is a conversation I've had with Lou online before too. It's not, you know, don't trust scientists. Don't figure it out for yourself.
Do your own research.
Scientists don't even trust other scientists. That's why they have that method in place, in order to sift through the bullshit. They don't believe any paper that comes across their desk. Yeah. Just because, you know, one person didn't wake up one morning and was like, "Oh, gravity." That's how it works, and then everyone just accepted it.
Yeah.
You know, one person didn't. You know, Charles Darwin didn't wake up.
Trial and error, man.
You know, in the morning and go like, "Evolution, I got it. That's it."
Yeah.
And then everyone just believed them. And like, evolution is something that is still being observed and recorded and tested.
That's cool.
And because scientists don't trust other scientists, they're trying to find the truth in whatever related field that they're in, and to do that, you need to have that mindset to where anything can be bullshit. You need to wait to sift through that and find like the actual bits of truth.
Yep, that is correct, man.
True that.
The devil has my back.
Eddie, you're going to hell. Come with me.
Hell sounds more fun than heaven anyway.
Hey, but look at this picture right here. Tell me that this picture doesn't make any sense.
Which one?
What does it say here?
Wait, if Satan punishes people who are bad, wouldn't that make him a pretty good guy?
That's a good point to make. And actually, that's a thought that's something I used to think about in high school. I had my English teacher, Mrs. Donor. I'm gonna go ahead and just put her on blast. But and one time in class, she played a Rolling Stones song called "Sympathy for the Devil."
Oh yeah,
and it's a great song. It's a very well-known Rolling Stones song. But that was like one of my first times where I got to sit back and kind of look at the devil objectively. Like, well, he's just maybe he's just doing his job. Like that's what I mean. That's what he's there for, right? Like he's not. You can't judge him for being a bad guy.
Yeah, whatever. Yo.
Oh man, that's too funny.
Check. All right, cool.
Check. We're good.
All right, dude. Well, thanks for coming in, man. We're gonna wrap it up with that, and again, you're always welcome to come in.
Thank you.
And you want to leave the show with any last words of wisdom?
Always question everything.
Oh,
never stop
right.
stop learning. Always question everything.
I'll give him a round of applause for that one, folks. And we're out like that. Thank you for coming in again, dude. And open
Thank
your
you,
mind
everybody.
podcast. We're
Open
out.
your mind, baby. Peace.
Peace.